Check it out. What's up, ninjas? It's your boy Juanito. Very happy to be here talking to you all. Grateful, as always, to be learning. And excited, because what I got for you today is a good one. Increase our potential to do all the things that we want to do in our life, right? Today, we're going to tackle some of the most common demons that each and every one of us wrestle with. Reminds me of the story about wrestling with God. They say you can't wrestle with God, right? So I invite you all to consider that maybe, just maybe, we're setting ourselves up to wrestle against God. I'm talking about the way that we breathe. If we go against nature, we will suffer. I just got back from an awesome weekend with Patrick McKeown. Patrick McEwen is an awesome guy. You should definitely check out his TED Talk, Shut Your Mouth and Change Your Life. You can find that on YouTube. All about the benefits of nasal breathing. Moreover, breath reduction. There's so many things that this breathing technique can help us with, so I'd like to take you through some of them first. Just that way, maybe pique your interest, keep you going a little bit. So check this out. Anxiety. One of the biggest problems that we're dealing with right now. Depression. Sleep apnea, huge. Kind of goes alongside chronic fatigue, right? So that way, if you don't sleep well, you're tired during the day. If any of you have ever had an anxiety attack, or your friends tell you about it, or your family, you know it's horrible. That feeling that you can't catch your breath and your heart is racing a million miles an hour. ADHD, the inability to focus. How many times do we have something great planned? How many times do we get up and say, man, I'm gonna do this, and this today, but somewhere through the day, it kind of drifts away. There's a loss of focus. Asthma, allergies, those are the ones that are really close to me personally, right? Congestion, inability to breathe out of your nose, breathlessness during exercise, dyspnea, even some success with heart failure and diabetes. You see, this has to do with our metabolism. Now we can talk about how deeply intertwined our heartbeat is with our breath. We can introduce the idea of heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is all about the difference in your heartbeat, right? If your heartbeat is just uniform, you have a problem. You want your heartbeat to be variable, versatile, so that way you can tackle the challenges of the environment, right? You want your heartbeat to be able to speed up if it needs to, be able to slow down when it's time to relax. So let's get into it. The oxygen paradox, right? We talked about oxygen being bound to hemoglobin. 98% of the oxygen in our blood is bound by hemoglobin, must be transported by hemoglobin. That leaves only 2% to be dissolved into the blood. At the same time, as we breathe and take in oxygen, we are exhaling carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide has gotten a bad rap, man. Carbon dioxide needs some PR, so here I am for carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide in higher levels in the bloodstream will lead to vasodilation. That is the opening up of our blood vessels. Subsequent lowering of our blood pressure, because we all know that something wider, you can travel through it with less pressure. Something tighter is going to build a higher pressure. So for that reason, and because oxygen can only detach from hemoglobin in the presence of elevated carbon dioxide, we know that if we breathe less, we'll be able to hold on to more carbon dioxide. Oxygen will detach from hemoglobin more readily, and we'll be well oxygenated. Our mantra through the 4 days together in New York City was breathe deep, breathe light, breathe slow. 2 types of hyperventilation, right? There's acute hyperventilation, chronic hyperventilation. Acute hyperventilation is like what we would find in Wim Hof method. This is where we are hyperventilating, but do it for a short period of time. Chronic hyperventilation is much more of a problem, much more insidious, because you don't realize you're doing it. If you are acutely hyperventilating, you're gonna notice, man. That's like a panic attack. Your hands get tingly. Unless you did it on purpose, as in Wim Hof method, then it might not be so nerve-wracking. Chronic hyperventilation is really what we're looking to prevent. Mostly because, like we said, it will deplete your carbon dioxide. Okay, ninjas, something important to understand about chronic hyperventilation. It will decrease our CO2 threshold, meaning that the amount that's normal and natural to have and healthy for us, we can no longer even tolerate. So it's going to be really important to rebuild that chemosensitivity. If you're predisposed to it, experience bronchoconstriction, the constricting of your airway, asthma, allergies, coughing. In general, we want to breathe less. Why do we want to breathe less? Because there's a paradox when it comes to how we oxygenate our tissue. The paradox, the oxygen paradox, is all about oxygen and hemoglobin and carbon dioxide. Again, oxygen bound with hemoglobin cannot release into the tissues unless there is sufficient carbon dioxide. What does that mean? That means that all those breaths that we're taking when we're hyperventilating are not helping us get oxygen into our cell. Ultimately, all we're doing is losing carbon dioxide, making oxygen bind even tighter to hemoglobin, keeping us from oxygenating our tissues. Moreover, when we breathe from our upper chest, it sends stress signals to our brain. We will activate our fight or flight response. If we are chronically in the fight or flight response, we'll never be able to relax, we'll never be able to focus. Oxygenation to the brain goes down, as does oxygenation to the tissues. Now keep in mind, this is with chronic hyperventilation over time. This will also induce respiratory alkalosis, and our body has fantastic homeostatic mechanisms in place to make sure that our blood pH doesn't change drastically. I mean, if it changes by just a little bit, we'll die. So there's buffers in place. The buffer that you'll use if you're chronically hyperventilating is called bicarbonate, released by the kidneys. So now, because of your breathing pattern, your body is being taxed. You have to spend additional energy secreting bicarbonate from your kidneys. Moreover, now you're losing bicarbonate, you're losing the ability to buffer when your pH does change. And it will continue to change as long as you chronically hyperventilate. Over time, could lead to things like adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue, ADHD, lack of focus, and just you not feeling right. Oh, appetite, yeah. So you will be more hungry because you're using up all these minerals for that buffering effect that we talked about before. So if you're looking for weight loss, this can help you as well. Not to mention you'll have more energy to train. Not to mention you'll be craving better foods and better understand your body, because the thing is, when we are chronically hyperventilating and depleting ourselves in this way, it's natural for us to have food cravings and get hungrier because we have to make up for that energy that we lost. Oh man, it turns into a spiral. For example, you hyperventilate during the day, you hyperventilate in your sleep. You hyperventilate in your sleep, you wake up and you're chronically fatigued. You wake up and you're chronically fatigued, you breathe heavier. That's one cycle right there. Anxiety, panic. You start to think those thoughts, feel those feelings, all of a sudden you breathe faster. You hyperventilate. Upper chest breathe. Now we're sending off stress signals again. There's another cycle for you. So all of these things, they bleed into each other, and many of us would like to just maybe meditate or talk about the things that are happening to us, but it's difficult when you're going against your physiology. The best way to start is going to be to retrain your breathing.